Hello and welcome back to Seconds Out. Today we bring you another one of our best interviews of 2024 as we caught up with Jane Couch following her induction into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. We also discussed the story and struggles that she'd been on throughout her career and the rise of women's boxing, looking at the landscape of how it is today.
Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by Jane Couch MBE. Probably the first time we've seen each other, if this counts as seeing each other, in a number of years. But delighted to see you again, and for a great reason as well. You're in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. You're going to get inducted in June. How does it feel?
Still in a bit of shock, Dan. You look really well. You don't look much different from all them years ago.
Oh, stop it.
Looking good, kid.
You too, you too. You probably still fight as well and all. Yeah. How does it feel to be inducted? Because you're already an MBE, right? So you've already been celebrated, but this is by the boxing community specifically. Does it mean more? How does it feel?
Yeah, it was a bit of a shock at first, and then I don't know, I just kept getting used to it and then doing more interviews, and I'm thinking, wow, it's really good that the boxing community have finally, well, not in this country, but finally have recognised me. So yeah, there'll be a few slap faces about, but never mind, eh?
I was going to say, it's not the board of control don't have anything to do with the International Boxing Hall of Fame, luckily.
Good
So
job.
you might not have made it in. But yeah, no, it's good to see.
Good job.
What do you feel they're doing it for? Because it's not just your achievements as a fighter, although they were great. There's a certain other element to it, in the same way that they talk about people like Ricky Hatton, Barry McGuigan, people like that, because they've transcended the sport and they've done as much outside the ring as inside. Is that what you feel yours is for, being a pioneer, especially how women's boxing is now doing?
Yeah, I suppose it is really because when I took it up, it was massive in America. So I never had any choice to box here. So I had to keep going to America. But luckily enough, I was on all the big shows, same bill as Roy Jones Jr., Naz, all the Lennox Lewis, all the big stars. So, and I was just like the warm-up fight, the novelty fight. So you didn't really get paid much, but it was just a great experience going over, boxing on the same bill as all the great fighters of the 90s and early 2000s. So I suppose, yeah, it is. It is because of what I did outside the ring. And then I sort of wonder how good I could have been if you wasn't doing all the fighting and the arguing outside the ring and you had like the right training and stuff. But yeah, I did all right. 5 world titles, 39 professional fights, boxed all over the world. So yeah, I think it's like I could see 20 odd years ago how big it was in America. I was just trying to explain to everybody in England, look, I go and box on the same bill as Naz, and everyone going, yeah, all right, Jane, and just sort of dismissing it. So yeah, I mean, it's a massive achievement, and I'm really proud of myself, and the way it's going nowadays is just brilliant, isn't it?
Well, I was going to say, how do you feel about that side of it? Because the girls now, women, sorry, are earning a lot of money. They're topping bills. They're appearing all over the world like you did, but getting more prominence. Maybe not quite parity with the men in terms of money and public perception just yet, but it's certainly heading in that direction. Do you just feel pride when you see that because you opened those doors? Or are you a little bit envious that that wasn't around when you were fighting? You didn't get to top those bills and make those millions and millions.
It would have been nice if so when I first got the license, if the promoters and the managers and the trainers would have embraced it a bit more, then it can you imagine how big it would have been here now? Because you had behind me, you had like Taffy Brown and Juliet Winter, and they was all coming through behind, and even they wasn't getting any recognition. So I just think it it's just how it is, isn't it? It was just the wrong time or the wrong person. Maybe if it had been Katie Taylor or somebody a bit more media friendly and with rather than a rough girl from Fleetwood, then it might have all been different and a lot better 20 odd years ago. But I think I think to be great, you have to do great things, and I'm very proud of what I did, and absolutely love watching the women getting a better deal. They're not all making money, believe me. So maybe a few, just a bit like the men. Just there's not many people make money out of professional boxing, but so long as they're getting a better deal than what I got, then brilliant.
Yeah, I don't think it's just that you were, and this is your words, not mine, a rough girl from Fleetwood. I think it's also that the world has changed a lot in the last 20, 30 years in terms of equality and in terms of, people now appreciating that women can do the same thing as men, not just sporting wise, but commercially as well. You look at the England football team, the Lionesses, and how they're being more accepted now. Their game was on TV in prime time on terrestrial the other night as well. So I think the world's changed a lot in terms of female sport. And people like you have got to take some of the credit for that.
Yeah, the world has changed massively, but I didn't retire till 2007, and it was as bad then. In 2007, it was horrendous. You had Frank Warren and Frank Maloney. Just if I was on an interview call, they'd be on the other line calling women shouldn't be allowed. You had Sky Sports with Adam Smith that wouldn't give you anything. So to achieve what I did without any help or any publicity, positive publicity, even then when I retired and I wrote the book, The Final Round, which is what the film has been picked up with, but there was no boxing journalists promoted the book. There was still, oh my God, because they wanted, this is what I feel, they want, because of how women's boxing's turned out, and I always knew it would, because it was the same in America with Ann Wolfe and Lucia Riker. I just think that they want to erase that part of history, so when the 2012 Olympics was a big driving force for women, they wanted to forget how 2012 got to where it got to. So they wanted to erase me and just and I was quite happy with that. Listen, I'm quite happy. Whatever they do, I know what I did, and I know I'm in the Hall of Fame and lots of other achievements. But I just think, even though it was 20 odd years ago, it wasn't 20 odd years ago. Like that, they still, even after boxing, they still don't support me, or in this country, they do in America, but that's just how it is. I suppose they feel a bit silly that when I was on banging the drum and in everybody's face at the weigh-ins and with the video cameras and that, they just weren't ready for it, and they still probably hold a bit of a grudge, but we're here, different times, and the game's flying.
Well, I guess it's a bit of shame, isn't it, on their part, shame and guilt that they got it wrong then. So to admit it now, when everything's going well, I guess they can't.
It's a bit embarrassing. It's, and there are a lot of the same managers and trainers that are training women now wouldn't give me the time of day, and I had to stay in Bristol because there was only techs that had trained me. So yeah, it was all. But listen, like I said, to be great, you've got to do great things, and I'm getting recognition now. There's a film being made soon, so yeah, it's all good. Danny,
tell us a little bit about the journey, if you like, because as you said, being a pioneer means that you had no real role models to look up to when you were coming up to get into boxing. It didn't seem like something you could do as a career choice. What was it that first interested you in the sport and made you think you could do it?
So I saw a documentary about Deirdre Golgety, the Irish girl, boxing Christy Martin. And I thought, wow, I'd love to have a go at that. So I went to the local gym in Fleetwood, and they went, oh, you can't box, you're not allowed. Anyway, eventually taught me way in, and Frank Smallbone, my trainer, trained me in Fleetwood. And then the owner of the gym, because it was getting more publicity, like even back in the 90s, oh, there's a girl boxing in Fleetwood. And then you got a bit of negative publicity as well, saying women shouldn't be allowed to do this, shouldn't be allowed to do that. So then I had to move to Bristol because it was becoming too much for a small town gym to all the programs coming in radio and all the negative press. So I moved to Bristol. So it was a farm on the outskirts of Bristol with an old trainer called Tex, and I just stayed there really, because Lennox Lewis and Frank Bruno used to train there, and it was a bit out of the way. And so, because it was a bit, you not ashamed that you was a boxing, but you couldn't really be in Champs Camp in Manchester or any of the big gyms, because you would have been thrown out. So Tex let me train there when Lennox was there and Frank was there. And then I just made a little community of boxers down there, sparred with Dean Francis, Glenn Catley, all the Bristol lads. And they were all really good with me. And so I just did it. Even though I wasn't really getting paid, I was just trying to, I don't even know what I was trying to do, to be honest. I should have just packed it in and walked away, because, but I got to see the world, and I did meet some great people in boxing. There's only a few that I'm still in touch with, because the boxing world, it's very fickle, but I still got my old friends in boxing, like yourself and Terry Dooley, all the old timers that.
I'm pretty sure I reached out to you for an interview a few months ago, maybe even a year ago now, but you weren't keen on doing it. I can't remember why, but it was about there was a fight coming up. It might have been Marshall Shields, one of the big female fights, and maybe you were just too busy.
I've just been so busy, Dan, because since I wrote the book, and we've got an all-female cast lined for the film, a female producer and everything. So, yeah, I've just been really busy, because I want to get the story right, because I didn't even tell the people in boxing the real journey of it. So we're just trying to get the journey right. And the book, it's based on the book, which is the book that I wrote, which was The Final Round. So, yeah, I've just been, I don't know, just I mean, you see me when I was boxing, I was just a hyperactive lunatic. I was just running around like punching reporters in the ribs and just trying to get it out there. And I'm older now. I'm 55. I'm slowing down a bit, Dan. But yeah,
is it too late to make a claim for the ribs? I haven't seen them since.
You watch now, when the film goes out, everyone will be like, "Yeah, I'm going to sue you."
Everyone will be like, "That was me. It's just because you punched everyone."
It was Terry Dooley. I got Terry Dooley. I think I did break one of his ribs.
Yeah.
Yeah, he loved it. He loves it.
Poor old Terry. Oh, did he? You said you watched the documentary about Deirdre Gogarty when she fought Christy Martin. How old were you when you saw that, and what were you doing in your life?
So I was 21 and I was working in a rock factory in Fleetwood, and I seen Deirdre and Christy, and then I just become this head to bowl, like ringing Don King, going, "I want to fight Christy Martin," even though I'd never had any fights. And then I found.
Had you ever done any boxing training or anything?
No.
What was it? What was it? Just such a good documentary.
It was just because I don't know. My brother was in a punk band, and we was always scrapping, at the gigs and stuff. So I was only little, but I used to be able to handle myself. Just like to fight, and I used to be toy fighting with them all the time. And I just was like, yeah, I need to have a go at that. But I had to learn on the job, really. I mean, I was awful, head down, just winging away like that at first. And then as I moved to Bristol and I got in with top amateurs, like world champions, Dean Francis was unreal, Glenn Catley, and I learned so much from them people that I started to get a bit better and get my shape, and then getting on all the big shows, getting to deal with the nerves and everything. But I was just born too soon, wasn't I?
Well, yeah, but I'm sure a lot of people are grateful you were. Tell us a bit about, and this is kind of a defining part of your career, even though it's not always positive, is the battle with the British Boxing Board of Control to get a British boxing license. And just tell us a little bit about that and how that started, that kind of war between the two of you.
See, I've got no malice towards anybody now. Even Frank Maloney, I just think it was just at that time where they were so against it. All right, I got a raw deal, but I've had a lot worse in my life. But I don't know, with the board, they just wouldn't give anything. They wouldn't. They wouldn't listen. They wouldn't listen to advice. They wouldn't listen to legal advice. They wouldn't listen. The most important thing is, I think, is the medical side. It isn't more dangerous for women, and in fact, it could be actually more dangerous for men because men punch a lot harder than women. Like so, I don't know. It was just that. It was just you're not doing it, and the way they spot. And when I went to the first interview, well, can you not do something a woman does? And I said, well, what does a woman do? They went, well, you could be a Ken Honeybald. It was. Can you not be a cleaner or a secretary? It was like, well, I don't want to be a cleaner, and they went. And as I walked out of the meeting, over my dead body, will you ever get a license in this country? And I was training so hard. I was in a training camp with all these good fighters, and I trained 6 days a week. I had no life. I didn't go out. I didn't, you know, I was isolated. I had to leave my family and friends in Fleetwood. And then, so I have to have that battle was just rubbish. But I wasn't fazed by it at all. I was like, well, come on then. You want to take me on? Well, I turned back round to him that day and I said, I will get that license. I promise you. One day I'll get this and you'll all eat your words. And they all just laughed at me. And and look at it now. I was right all along, Danny.
Oh yeah. The in-ring side of your career, obviously many highs, all those world titles. What sticks out as the proudest moment or proudest moments?
Of the fighting. So probably the first one will be the French girl, Sandra Geiger, because I was so inexperienced. I'd just had 4 unlicensed fights, and they took me to Denmark. Well, you know, if you go to Denmark, you're not on the right side of the card. So yeah, I just street fighted her to win that one, and then I think the other highlight was probably the professional debut in Streatham, when Joey Pyle and Roy Cameron and all the old villains looked after me, and they'd done a few shows for me in London, and that was really good because my family was in England, so my family was able to come and see them fights, and a lot of them were like the best fight of the night. Maybe we weren't as skilled or as experienced as a lot of the male fighters. Oh, Frank Maloney took his fighter off it. That's it. We got there, and he was like, "She's fighting. My fighter's not fighting." Oh, yeah, all right then, Frank. So he took his, but that, and then I suppose getting the MBE in 2007 was a big moment, because it's like it feels like the whole boxing world's against you, but then you get the MBE. So I'm thinking, well, if you don't want me to box, why are you giving me the MBE? But then I suppose they don't understand the politics of professional boxing like we understand and they're a governing body that are self-governed by themselves, aren't they, really?
Given you got the MBE way back in 2007, and that's when you retired as well, are you surprised how long it's taken to get inducted into the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I didn't ever think I'd be inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Why not?
I just didn't. I just didn't think that what I did was big enough.
Wow.
And I'm still a bit like that these days, because I think, well, if it wasn't me, eventually some girl would have come along and probably done it in the end, or would they? I don't know, but I don't know. I'm just a bit shy about stuff like that, I think.
Yeah, because there's still not many women in the Hall of Fame, I don't think. I know Eileen Eaton was the first one, obviously promoter out in California.
It's Lucia. Lucia's in it, isn't she?
Yeah, Lucia Riker.
Christy Martin.
So but we're still talking single figures, aren't we, for women?
I'm the first British woman. I've got a thing about being the first. So I made boxing, then the first one to get an MBE, and now the first one in the Hall of Fame. They're just torturing me, aren't they, with this being the first?
I'm going to ask you about the film in a minute, but you talked about some of the people that looked after you. Tex Woodward, of course, the trainer, Joey Pyle, and some of the others that put on your fights. What do you think made them different? Because, you know, the board were against you. A lot of the promoters, we talked about Maloney and Frank Warren, were against women's boxing generally. What made those guys different that they wanted to help you out?
Well, I think as well in them days, boxing was quite monopolised with Frank Warren and Frank Maloney. It was just really them two. So when the London crew, they were just doing small shows. So I suppose by putting me on as a novelty, then that sort of helped them get a bit more ticket sales for their show. So it sort of worked both ways. But also, so young Joey Pyle was just starting out with his dad then. And young Joey Pyle probably some that determination in me. And like I said, the hard work. I was in a training camp for nearly 14 years, hardly ever left the farm because I thought it would happen sooner in England than it did because it was just flying in America. But yeah, I don't know. We're here now, that's all that matters. And I suppose in another way, there was no social media in my day. So when I was out there doing all that and it was, you had to buy the newspaper or the boxing news to read about boxing, really, didn't you? Not like it is now. But in a way, it's probably worked out better because they're making a film about me. And I think that'll be a good. I've told them to try and go a bit easy on the boxing board, but it's quite difficult.
Well, yeah,
Even
I mean, it's got to be
now,
dramatic,
even
hasn't it?
now,
That's the whole
though,
point.
but even now, there's still quite a few people in boxing that don't want women boxing in there, and that's just, I suppose, it's still got a way to go.
Now, we'll talk about the film in a minute, but I have to ask, and I don't want to take this down like a crude route, but given how anti-female boxing Frank Maloney was, and I've spent plenty of time with Frank, you know, back in those days when I heard him express those views, he's now Kelly Maloney. He's transgendered into a lady, which is absolutely fine. But do you see a certain irony in that he was very anti-female boxing and now is a woman himself and presumably would want his right to box or his daughter's right to box?
I just can't get my head around it. It's just really, and then I try and think of the compassionate side and think, well, was he looking at me as a woman going into a male sport, knowing that he wanted to be a woman? I can't work it out.
So
But then
resenting you.
Myself, I just think to myself, well, if he wanted to be a woman, you think he'd be defending a woman, not putting her down, not telling her you should get your own organisation and you're a lesbian.
Maybe it's
and you're
what
a
you said.
freak.
Maybe he resented you because he had that inside him and he didn't know how to deal with it.
And maybe, and you know, I just thought when he did come as a woman, then I thought, well, no, I didn't really want an apology. It just was the time, but it would have been nice if maybe he would have said the reason why he was so bad. Like,
Have you had that from
so...
anyone? Have you had any apologies or you were right all along?
Not one. Not one. But then they have to live with that, don't they? They have to live with women's boxing could have been so much more further than it was if they'd have sort of embraced what I was doing. But I don't know. Maybe it's worked out. Everything for a reason, Dan.
And let's talk about the film, because we heard for a number of years that they were going to make your kind of life story and the battle with the ball into a TV series. Sharon Jones was on board. We heard about that, and then we were waiting for it to go into production. Didn't hear much more about it, but now it's a film. So just tell us how we got to where we are.
Yeah. So, and then lockdown come, which again, everything happens for a reason. My story, I didn't think was a series. I never thought it was, but they're the experts, so you sort of go along with it. But then I've stopped going along with things now because I think that I'm a bit older and I think I should have a bit more say in it. So then I met Michael Knowles, who's the producer, who was on the same wavelength as me, and it was decided that was now going to be a film, which is much better because I just don't think a series would have worked. But, we're all still on board. We're all still working very hard. We don't start filming till November. So long as the story's right, then it'll be out. But I wasn't going to do something that wasn't right for me.
And that's the final round, which is, of course, based on your book. How much input, how much influence do you have over the adaptation for film?
Yeah, well, sort of co-producer, so I can sort of say what's right and what's wrong, which we suppose a lot of boxing stories they can't do that. If the person's died or something, but I'm still around, very much around, and I just think the story really does need to be told because it was a hell of a fight.
And who's playing you?
We're not sure yet, but it's a big name.
Right, okay.
We're not
stay
sure.
tuned.
Hopefully, Saran's still going to be in the film. Ideally,
yeah, but she wasn't playing your part, was she?
She wasn't playing my part, no. There's a few, I can't really say too much, but there's a few involved. And if the one we want, if she accepts the offer, then she is just perfect. And Saran would be absolutely perfect as the legal team as well, because the legal team had actually won the case. So, all right, it was my case, but it was that they did the work and they did the research. So it's down to the lawyers, and they should get a lot of credit for what they did as well.
And if you start filming it in November this year, what are we looking at for release? 2026?
Could be, yeah. It's a long time, isn't it, with this TV world? I mean, so long as it's right, I don't mind when it gets released, but it's just got to be told how it was, and it should be a smash hit.
And how much are you looking forward to the Hall of Fame weekend itself? Have you been before as a visitor?
I've never been, no,
Okay.
never. So yeah, I am absolutely really looking forward to it, and the big reason for that is that Ricky Hatton's going to be there on the same flight. No, this is going to be funny. So when we get to JFK, we've got a 9-hour delay. So my fella is Irish, so he's with me, and then we've got Ricky. So I've got 9 hours to keep Ricky Hatton and an Irishman out of the pub.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
I'm not sure you'll do 9 minutes.
But so long as we don't get thrown out of JFK in them 9 hours we're rocking about, then we should be able to make the next flight to Canastota. But I'm so excited because the special guest is Mickey. One of the special guests is Mickey Ward, and I was on the same bill as Mickey in Connecticut, and I just can't wait to see him again. Oscar De La Hoya, can't wait to see him. Spinks, I think, so I'm going to be seeing all these legends, and I'm just so excited.
Well, you're one of them. You and Mickey Ward.
I know, but you don't.
You and Mickey both had films made about your life as well.
Yeah, you just don't sort of see it like that, do you? I think even Ricky's probably thinking, "Wow, the Hall of Fame." I think we both are thinking that, and just to join there's not many British fighters in there, so just to join them is really special. I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Brilliant. Well, really appreciate you finding time for me as well, because obviously you've got it all going on at the moment. But yeah, thoroughly.
Anytime for you, Dan.
Yeah, thoroughly well deserved, and yeah, can't wait to see you up there giving your speech.
Thank you, my love. Lovely to talk to you.
And you. Let's catch up again soon. Let's not leave it so long.
I'll send you some pictures from Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah, that'd be wicked. Yeah, please do. Yeah. All right, take care.
Take care, Danny. Bye, love.
Bye.